This video is for you visiting Portugal and wanting to be the best tourist you can be. Language-wise, of course, because I'm not going to tell you where to stay. This video is also for you living in Portugal. Perhaps you even learned the language up to a certain level, but it's still showing signs of some touristicism. New word I made up. I will be calling both avatars, if you will, tourists, to simplify things, okay? Olá, eu sou Catarina. Here at the Language Unschool, I help you acquire European Portuguese in a natural way. I think it's safe to say that both tourists are here in Portugal because they like the food. So eating out is likely to happen. So if you're going to a restaurant and you do not have a reservation, you would just come in and say, duas pessoas. You will probably be asked which table you prefer, in which case you can say, pode ser aqui, pode ser ali. So it can be here, can be there, as in this one is okay, or the one over there is okay. You can change the intonation to make it a question if you need. Pode ser aqui, pode ser ali. If you do have a reservation, then you would come into the restaurant and say, fiz uma reserva para duas pessoas. I think using the past tense here won't hurt, will it? If your Portuguese will not go much further than this, it's likely you will not understand the answer. But relax, you have, after all, been in the same situation before, just in a different country, in a different language. So you know what the logical next question might be. Em que nome? So they're asking you which name you've made the reservation. Just prepare yourself for not hearing anything. Em que nome? Em que nome? You only had a glimpse of the waiter's lips moving ever so slightly, but you can't really tell anymore if it was just a glimpse or if it actually happened. Em que nome? Perhaps you imagined it. So just say the name that you reserved the table, that would be yours, and make sure that your partner is prepared and watches this video with you, because in case you've lost your senses for just a split second with this whole experience, your partner can come to the rescue and simply say your name for you. Be prepared at all times to be replied in full speed Portuguese, but feel good about it. That is a good sign. Your pronunciation was clear enough. And shamelessly continue in English if at all possible. When ordering your meal, just start by saying queria. Notice the difference between the spelling and the way I pronounce it, queria. Followed by an English order and smile. Before the waiter thinks you're crazy, you will be confusing them with your very natural, spontaneous bilingualism. By the way, if you're ever so slightly confused as to how this word becomes queria, then you should really have a look at my 4-day challenge to unschool your Portuguese. I'll leave a link below in the description. Now, tipping, sensitive topic. I'm not sure there's a rule of thumb here. It's a very personal thing, but if you come from the US, of course, there's that thing that in the US you have to tip and it should be a certain percentage. In Portugal, it's not so much that. So I would keep it simple. And if you see a number like 37,5 euros, remember, it's not dollars. Then you would simply say, faça 40. Faça 40. So you round it a bit to the next number. On the same token, you can use the same formulas we used initially for the restaurant scenario for checking in at a hotel. You come in and you say, fiz uma reserva. Fiz uma reserva. It becomes fiz uma reserva. Say it really confidently and try not wearing white socks or a backpack. There are big giveaways that you're a tourist. And show your ID straight away so that you avoid being asked questions you will not understand. Leave the attempt for practicing conversing in Portuguese for the evening after you've had a glass or two. It helps. Speaking of which, not the glass of two, but of evening. This is a word we don't have. We just simply do not have the concept of evening. There, I've said it. It's an incredibly rich language, yet we do not have evenings. We go from bom dia, boa tarde, straight into boa noite, normally used after it's dark. If you ever get a funny look at the supermarket because you've said boa tarde too early, rule of thumb is after 1 p.m. It may be because the person hasn't had lunch yet. We go more by the stomach, fed or not fed, than by the clock. Okay, I think it's time we went to the supermarket. Both tourists are bound to experience the Americanized supermarkets in Portugal, unless you're lucky to have experienced the mercearia de bairro, one of those small grocery stores with a price tag handwritten on every single item. Let's talk about senhas, still within the supermarket. I give you that the senha system looks pretty old-fashioned, but give us a break. We're not British. We don't have queue from here signs spread all over the country. And we get extremely confused if we see two caixas de multibanco and only one queue built exactly in the middle. We think we're dreaming. This cannot be. So we shall hold on to the senhas system for years to come, because they bring order to our inherent inability to form a queue. Now, roughly every supermarket follows a script. Let's look at the constants and the variables of that script. Let's imagine this happens in the morning before lunchtime. Bom dia, coloque as compras no carrinho. The person will ask you, vai querer contribuinte na fatura? Now, remember we just looked at the verb queria, that is pronounced queria, I would like. This is also would you like, this number on your receipt. Vai querer or querer. So one of those verbs is really shortened. Vai querer contribuinte na fatura? Now the script may vary here, so keep your ears out to the sound int, contribuinte, contribuinte, int. That's what you're going to hear. Because the question may vary a little bit, but you will hear contribuinte, no one. But I mean, no one will say nif, okay? If you're still in the tourist category, you really do not need to put in the número de contribuinte in the fatura, so you'll just say, não obrigado, or não obrigada. I'll explain about this variable next. Then they will ask you, depending on the supermarket, they will ask you, tem cartão Poupa Mais, if you go to Pingo Doce, tem cartão Continente, if you go to Continente, tem a aplicação do Lidl, if you go to Lidl, and so on. You just say, no. As soon as they inform you what the amount is going to be, you either pay in cash, but if you pay with your card, you can simply ask multibanco. So do not ask if you're going to pay by, can you pay by card? We simply call it multibanco, okay? And we're talking about a debit card. It's very rare that people in Portugal will pay with a credit card to go to the supermarket. So you just say multibanco and show your card and follow the instructions. If you're still a bit shy about even saying this, just show your card and wait for them to make the selection so that you can pay. Receive the talão, the receipt. And if you don't want it, the environment thanks you for that. Just say, não preciso do talão, obrigado, or obrigada. Pick up your stuff and say, obrigado, bom dia. As promised, I'm going to talk about that variable of obrigado, obrigada. I know it may be puzzling you for a while. Now, I always say gender affects everything, but not everyone believes me. Well, if you think it this way, men only wear trousers. Women have the option of trousers or skirts. It's the Scotland scenario. The same applies to obrigado. Men will say obrigado, women will say obrigada, but they can also say obrigado. But don't waste too much time on it, because really, especially in the Lisbon area, we tend to shorten the word into obrigado. Obrigado. So the beginning and the end just goes poof. Again, my 4-day challenge explains why. Before we leave the supermarket, if you're waiting in line to pay and you see a person behind you carrying just a couple of items, and as a tourist, you have the time and you want to let them go ahead of you, you simply say, pode passar. Pode passar. Simple as that. Okay, I have been avoiding talking about coffee because I know my advice may not be well taken. And here, just a quick disclaimer, I am far from being a coffee expert. My suggestion is, please don't hurt me, just simply have an espresso. Queria café. Simple. If you need it sweeter, just order a pastel de nata with it. If you need milk with it, I would say, if I managed to pay a full cup of tea every time I ordered one when I lived in England, and yet I got half a mug of hot water because I did not put any milk in it. So I think you can drink a cafezinho with no milk at all. Just learn the language first when the bitterness starts bugging you. For the tourist that's been here longer, I really encourage you to ditch the desculpe, não falo português. Pode repetir mais devagar, por favor? Whew, I'm tired myself just for having to say this. It's too long. Let's simplify it for reasons already explained here in this video. Just say, diga. That's what I say it. And it's no shame to ask for someone to repeat. Even I myself a while ago was having a conversation with this man and he said, o meu tio. And I understood min tio. And I knew he was talking about his uncle. So I was like, what, his uncle lied? It happens. So simplify by just saying diga. Last thing I want to bring up, which is actually related to the beginning, is when you introduce yourself. Now, when introducing yourself, again, for the sake of simplification, just say, Hola, Catarina. You know, and unless you're speaking to a Catarina, and then it would be awkward. But I think it should be obvious that you're saying your name is Catarina. Or just say, Hola, sou Catarina. And this is much easier to pronounce than chamo Catarina. Chamo-me, chamo. It's awkward. And if you are from the US, it's normal because of the size of the country to say, hi, hola, sou Catarina, and then the town and the state. In Portugal, that's not needed. I mean, Portugal. Portugal, it's just a little rectangle. So if it is relevant to the conversation to say where you live, then you would say, Olá, sou Catarina, moro no Porto, for example. I know this may have been a lot to take in. Hopefully you're not mad at me about the coffee. But you can relax a bit now and just check my favorite 14 words in Portuguese right here. Até a próxima.